We've got the green Jeep back in the shop, and we've got quite a bit of work to do. A couple videos ago, we had the Jeep in here. We did a little bit of work to it. We replaced some leaf springs that we had broken on the Rubicon. We installed a Shackle relocation kit back there. We installed some Boomerang shackles that I had built right before Rubicon actually. And we were able to get rid of the 1.5-inch lift block back there by getting some taller leaf springs. They're 5-inch rather than the 3.5-inch that were in there. And with that, the Jeep is sitting perfectly level. I'm really happy with it. So the setup is working really good, but there's a few issues with it, and we're gonna be fixing that today. First things first is the Boomerang shackles that I made. They have a joint instead of a bushing in them. They're not gonna work for this setup anymore. I noticed that these shackles are actually sitting at an angle, which isn't good because they're actually rubbing on the new bracket we have back there for the Shackle relocation kit. I'm not sure why it's doing this because it wasn't doing this with the stock bracket we had in there before. But anyways, we're gonna remove these shackles, build some with just bushings. We're gonna get rid of the joint altogether and just build some new shackles. Now, the last thing we're gonna be doing today is building some brackets to retain those leaf springs. The bottom 2 leaf springs don't have brackets, but the upper, I don't know, 4 or 5 do. So it kind of holds them into position so they're not walking out. Now, this generally wouldn't be a problem. It's fine if leaf springs do that a little bit, and you don't want them doing it a crazy amount, obviously. But because our JK wheels sit so far into the wheel well, they sit really, really close to those leaf springs. I'm talking like 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So actually, we were on the trail a few weeks ago, and those leaf springs kicked out going over, you know, these dirt roads. They kicked out, and they actually came into contact with those rear tires, and they were rubbing on the rear tires. So they were just doing a very small amount, but just enough, you know, to leave a mark on the tire. We don't want that because that, if it does it a little too much, that could potentially pop a tire. So we're, like I said, we're just gonna be building these little C brackets. I'm gonna weld them to the bottom of the bottom leaf spring, and that should help retain those leaf springs into their position. First things first, we're gonna get to building the shackles.
I want to take some measurements before we start building anything. The Jeep is sitting really good. It's really level with the current setup. Once we load it down with all our gear though, it seems to sag in the back just a little bit. So I'm going to take some measurements while the Jeep is empty, and then we're going to fill it up with all our gear and more to see if we're going to need to make these shackles a little bit longer. Because ideally, we want the Jeep to sit perfectly level once it's fully loaded, because that's when we usually drive the thing, when it's way down with all our gear.
So the measurements we took for before and after we put the weight in the Jeep, they're not that off, so I don't think I'm gonna be going and making longer shackles. I don't wanna be making this thing any taller than it needs to be. We're gonna be cutting those out using the CNC, and I got some bushings I got on Barnes 4-wheel drive right here. They're really nice. They're made out of, the outside is made out of DOM. It's about 1/4 inch thick, so these are gonna be nice and strong. Thankfully, I still have the measurements from when I built those shackles that are on the Jeep right now, so I shouldn't have to crawl under there and take some measurements. Should just be able to plug the numbers on the computer, cut it out in the CNC.
This CNC makes fabrication so much quicker, more efficient, and honestly, more fun overall. We can get some really precise cuts with this, as opposed to, say, a bandsaw, and the machine, like I said, makes really quick work of it.
So I did need to change some measurements. Didn't realize that until now, but the diameter of this, of the new bushing here, is different than the joint I have on there. So that don't work. So gonna have to go change some measurements. Unfortunately, have a wasted piece of metal here. We'll just keep it in the scrap. Hopefully we can use it in the future for some smaller stuff.
I made a few changes to the measurements where the bushing sleeve is going to be sitting on the bracket. It has to be 2-inch rather than what we had it at, which was 2.5.
That's better. Not bad.
I keep on dropping these pieces onto the concrete once the CNC is done with them. Not because they're hot, it's actually just a good way to get the excess slag off of them. I'll then take a grinder or sanding disc to them to make sure they're 100% cleaned up. There's 2 things we need to do next. We need to remove the current shackles in the Jeep, and we need to put a bend on the leaf spring side of the new brackets we just cut out.
Freight car steaming down the line to Birmingham. My guitar
So you can see I got the leaf spring side in here. You can see I bent it too much because here's our bushing. We want these mounts right here, the brackets, to be almost at the end right here. I want to be able to weld all the way around, but there's no reason for them to be like that far into the middle. So this is an easy fix. I'm just gonna pull these off and then lay it on the ground, and we can hit right here where the bend is with a hammer, and it should release some of that bend and bring the brackets closer to the end of this bushing right here. I'm gonna start with just this one right here. So that actually worked out perfect. So you can see I have plenty of space to get a weld in on both sides and get on the inside, obviously. That looks really nice. I'm happy with that. So these two are done. We can get these tacked together probably. Maybe we'll cut out the upper plate, the side plate I guess we should call it, and we'll get that all tacked together. But that's looking really good. I'm happy with that. Pushing there. And here's this. I just went ahead and we cut this out, and I got it bent up, and that is looking phenomenal. That looks really good. Nice gap right here on the sides. It's exactly what we want. So cool. I think we're ready to tack this together. Now to do all that again. So before I do an actual run and actually cut out the piece, I like to do what the program calls as a dry run, where it just kind of traces the piece and where it's going to be, where it's going to cut, just so we know we're not going to go off of the piece, just like we did right there. So then when that happens, I bring it back to 0, and then I'm going to adjust where the piece is going to start. So we're right there in the middle. That's our 0 point. We're going to just bring that over. We'll try a quarter inch left towards us. Then I'll go ahead, reset the 0 to right there, and we'll do another dry run. That's looking good so far. Let's give it a shot. So this is how it's sitting with the new shackles in there. We just have them tacked together, and it's sitting just like it was sitting before. I'd say it's pretty level. Maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 inch lower in the back, but that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and get these shackles all welded up together now. They're looking really good. The shackles are loosely installed and everything's looking really good. I just gotta go ahead and install the nuts and tighten everything down. These new shackles with the bushings are no longer rubbing on the shackle relocation bracket like they were with a jointed shackle. So that's good. That's literally the only reason why we did this. And instead of putting the shackle in the second hole back on that relocation bracket, I decided to go with the third hole back. I was thinking in theory this should give us a little more height, and it did. It gave us 3/4 of an inch. Now before fully loaded with all the gear in the back, I put it, all the weight I put out back there, we were sitting at 40 degrees at that second hole. Right now we're sitting at 30 degrees with the same amount of weight at the third hole. But I think to get that little extra amount of height, I think it's worth it. So we're going to be running it at that 30-degree mark. It's really not that far off from the 40. And it's a lot better than the original shackle angle we had in last video before we did all the work. I think we had like 10 or 15 degrees of shackle angle. So this 30 degrees is going to be more than perfect. So I'm going to get these shackles all tightening up and then we can move on to leaf spring retaining brackets.
I got the shackles tightened up. Everything is still lined up really good. And like I said, there's no more issue with them rubbing on the brackets.
So the next piece to this weird puzzle we got going on is we're going to be making what I'm calling the leaf spring retaining brackets. We've got 7 leaves in this pack and the top 5 are held in by similar brackets to what we're going to make, but the bottom 2 aren't, which allows for them to move side to side very slightly when we're off-road. We've had it happen off-road about 2 weeks ago when we went, and that allows them to rub on the tire because of how far in our tires and wheels sit in the wheel well. So this isn't acceptable. We can't have this happening. So we're going to be making very similar brackets to what's already on here holding the top 5 on. So I think I'm going to make one for the front and the back. So we're going to do 2 on each leaf spring. And they're going to get welded to the bottom of that bottom leaf. And we shouldn't have a problem. I'm just going to get the measurements from the existing brackets. Make them a little taller since they're going to be encasing all 7 leaf springs. And we should be good. I'll just weld them on, put a bolt through like these ones. We should be good to go. So I got both sides welded on. I just used that little hole at the bottom to weld them on and it came out really good, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna try to clamp these in a little bit. They're pretty good. I mean, the gap is pretty good on both sides. They're wicked close. I mean, we got what, an eighth of an inch right there. I'm gonna try to close them up with a C-clamp just a little bit. Maybe I'll hit it with a hammer once on this side, on both of them. Then we're gonna go ahead and install the bolt and the little slider up top. So we're actually cleaning out the shop today, and I found this piece of aluminum tubing that I had bought for my motorcycle a little while back, and it's a half inch outside diameter, I believe, but it fits the 3/8 bolts we're gonna be using perfectly. So we're gonna be using this, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and cut this at 2.5 inch sections. We'll see how that works. That was the original measurement that we were going for that bracket, the inside measurement. So we're gonna see how that goes. We're gonna cut this to 2.5. Nice. That looks sweet. Hopefully it does its job just as well as it looks, but I'm pretty happy with that. That looks really good. I think we'll be painting this. I think I'm going to wash under here because this is all mud right here. We're going to be washing under here and then I'll hit this with some black spray paint. Nothing crazy. But yeah, pretty happy with it. So we're going to be ending the video here. I think the work in this video is definitely going to help a lot. I think we're getting really close to be finished fine-tuning this rear suspension. I want to eventually do some rear shocks because they're kind of blown out in the back there. I think there's some cheap rough country ones in the back. So we'll take care of that eventually. A sway bar would be nice in the future, and some bump stops. In the future, we're gonna just be doing a few small things to the green Cherokee here and there. For the rest of the year, we got 2 big trips we're gonna be going on, one in November and then one in like December or January. They're gonna be far away, so we're just trying to get it ready for that. So like I said, we're just gonna be doing small things here and there to it, just to get it ready. I'd also like to do some aftermarket fender flares to this. I think that would kind of complete the look of the Jeep a little bit. And I've been looking at the Bushwhacker flat fender flares for the Cherokees. I think they look really good, and like I said, I think they would tie the entire look of the Cherokee together. So I appreciate y'all for sticking around to the end of the video with me. I wasn't originally gonna film this video actually, but the last video we did in the shop, working on the green Cherokee when we installed the leaf springs and the Shackle relocation kit, y'all seem to really like the in the shop content. We got a lot of really nice comments, so I decided to do another one. We're definitely gonna be doing some more in the future. We're probably gonna be shifting our gears from the green Cherokee and finally to the red Cherokee. Since the beginning of the summer, the red Cherokee has been sitting inside of the shop on jack stands because the green Cherokee actually got its front axle. I didn't want to buy a whole locker assembly for another day and a 30 before we hit Rubicon in the green Cherokee. So I just decided to take the entire front axle from the red Cherokee. It's gonna be tough to put the not so built axle back in the green Cherokee, so the red Cherokee can get its front axle back, but it's what we're gonna have to do. I've got a lot of other things I need to be doing to that red Cherokee because next season, next summer, once it gets warm out, we're gonna be driving that a lot. We're not going crazy on that thing. It's just kind of like a rebuild that we're gonna be doing to it and a few upgrades. We're gonna keep the same axles and that sort of thing, but I'm gonna rework the entire rear suspension. Right now, it's got a 4-link rear. It's a single triangulated. I think I'm gonna be trying to keep that. But like I said, we're just gonna rework some of the brackets and whatnot. We're gonna fix some things on the unibody. We're definitely gonna get some new tires. That is like literally the first step. The Mickey Thompsons on there I've had them for about 6 years. They're on my truck and now they've been on the Jeep for a couple of years now, about 3 or 4 years. They've definitely got their use and I'm sure we could get a few more seasons out of them. But I always get made fun of when I show up with that Jeep with those tires on it because they're getting to be about racing slicks now. We also might do some fun things, throw arcades in the Jeep and whatnot. We'll see when we get there. I just want to be able to drive the thing next year. Anyways, I gotta get out there and work on the van with Ashley. She's been working on it all day. I appreciate y'all for watching. If you haven't already, if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. We're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and so far, we're doing great. As always, we appreciate y'all for watching. We'll see you on the trail, and we'll see you next time.